motion to open tonight's meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Darcy.
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne.
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler.
Aye.
Unanimous vote to open the meeting and conduct business on February 27th.
All right, as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded by Marshfield Community Media. Michael, you want to start us with the town administrator report?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was notified by the MMA that I was reappointed to their Joint Public Safety Committee. And I was also appointed to a new retention committee on how to attract new town administrators and town managers. There seems to be a shortage. I attended the police building committee to approve some change orders. Conservation Committee interviews the position of Conservation Administrator. Had a meeting with Danielle Kerrigan, our HR Director, to review a number of personnel issues. Meeting with Council on Aging Carol Hamilton to review a location for a new shed that they're getting. Working with the Building Department for installation of the shed. Participated in an economic workshop by MAPC and Greg Guimont, our town planner, at the Senior Center. Weekly meeting with Ian Bastille, our town administrator, Lisa Clark, our treasurer, to review the FY24 budget and preparation for advisory board and for capital budget. We had day 2 of Conservation Commission interviews, and we'll have final interviews by the Select Board this evening. Had a meeting with Liz from Conservation to discuss personnel issues and staff changes. Had a meeting with the resident Zachary Nigro and his dad regarding a planning board issue with their property on Adelaide Road. Phone call with Jeff Deedy from Duxbury regarding seawalls and beach nourishment program that they're doing in Duxbury. Participated in the grand reopening ceremony at the Ventress Library after we did some painting, asbestos removal, and new rug installation. Stopped by drive-through clinic last Saturday to say thank you to everyone that was working there as we shuttered the clinic and moved the functions of the clinic to Town Hall, where we'll operate Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 3. Participated in the monthly department head meeting with our department heads at the new EOC. Participated in MMA's resident engagement best practice training. Participate in the dredge spoil meeting with town planner and Woods Hole Group. Participated in a meeting with the Situate Chair Company and Bill Finn and Mike Seal regarding easements for the Ventress Park project, which we're moving ahead on. Phone meeting with Catherine Pomier from CLA regarding update on cash reconciliation. Lunch meeting with the Select Board member, Mr. Kilcoyne, to discuss a number of ongoing issues in the town. Participated in a meeting with Coastal Zone Management, DPW, Planning Department, the town of Duxbury regarding ongoing discussion on beach nourishment with Leslie Fields from the Woods Hole Group. Meeting with Wendy Gardner of Brindo to discuss summer book reading program this year for the library summer reading program. They want to get the kids familiar with town government. They're looking forward to have department heads participate, elected officials participate, and spend some time talking to the kids and then going in and doing some readings. Mike DeMayo, though, we have a high standard to cover because he brings little sharks when he goes and he talks about the sharks and he shows videos, so we'll have to step up our game if we participate. Meeting with the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs regarding, not the Environmental Affairs, Executive Office of Technical Services regarding cybersecurity and a grant received by the town. Todd Goodwin and Jay McGillis taking the lead on this project and training. And weekly meeting with Fred Russell, our Facility Director, and Tony Bullitt, our Assistant Facility Director, to review maintenance issues regarding the schools, regarding our capital projects, the Town Hall project, and the dog park. On Friday, I had a dog park meeting with Biagini, Casey Lee, our architect, and Tony Bullock to review the work that's been completed and to discuss the pathway to completion. Waiting on a water hookup. They're completing some berms. The carports will be installed. They're extending the berm down a little on the resident side to give a little better protection. They're creating a pathway so people can walk from the fields over to the dog park. Had a meeting with Chief Simpson to discuss moving forward with the Mass Integrated Health and our partnership with Beth Israel Deaconess. We're ready to roll that out. Meeting with Police Chief and Fire Chief to talk about storage of DPW vehicles in their facilities, and they've reached out to Tom to say that they have space available in both of their facilities. Discussion of meeting with Tom Goodwin and Jay regarding updates to the VPN and double authentication to be able to get in. Discussion with town council on some ongoing legal issues and some investigations. Storm prep with Lieutenant Shaw, and that is my report.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Any questions or comments, Jim?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Questions or comments, Lynn?
Just about the beach nourishment. Could you just expand on that a
So
little bit?
beach nourishment, so it's just that, it's bringing in sand to reinforce the seawalls. And some people think it's a waste, because the sand only lasts about 3 years from when you put it there. Duxbury, if you want to go see what it looks like, if anyone wants to see it, Duxbury's doing it right now. They spent about $2.5 million to do it. That's roughly about the charge of what Marshfield would have to do, about $2.5 million. You know, if we choose to do that, we're going to have to go and do a debt exclusion to do that. We have about $375,000 set aside that was voted on, but they haven't actually gone out and done a bond on it, borrow it. So we'll probably advance that. I had a conversation with Greg Guimont today, and he wants to try to work with Duxbury so that we can coordinate our activities, because we have some money we can spend coordinating getting the sand, so we're working from the same central point back. And then maybe we can get some economies of scale on deliveries if it's the same company. When they go out to bid, the two towns would be able to bid it, and then they would be able to deliver it. If Duxbury wants to continue way down the far end, then we won't be able to get any economy of scale. But basically, you know, you take the sand, you put it up against the seawall, it prevents the water from, going underneath from the compounding, and then that weakens the seawalls. But residents, the benefit is residents have more sand. You know, if you go to beaches on 2.5 hours of each side of the tide in Green Harbor area, the water comes right up to the seawall. You're not even able to stay on the beach because the beach is really low. And so, you bring in that sand and try it, but after a couple of years it washes away, or a couple of big storms.
Okay, thank you.
All right, did you want to give us the COVID clinic update, Michael?
Yep, just very quickly, we closed the COVID clinic, and while we were in operation there from October 1st until the 24th of February, we gave 4,850 shots, which translates into 3,950 COVID vaccines and 900 flu vaccines.
Great, thank you,
So
Michael.
we're operating up here Tuesdays and Thursdays through March 9th, 9 to 3.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right, so very quickly, we'll just go out of order to action item number 2, which is the ARPA funding for fiber optics. I know Detective Goodwin's here, and so is Jay. Michael, you had some quick background on this project.
Yes. So we were very fortunate. It was a fiber optic project for $373,092. We received a $250,000. We were one of the first to get $250,000 fiber optic grant, which left a deficit of $123,092. What the vendor that was selected is Comtrack Corporation out of Boxborough, and what they did is they put fiber optics to connect 11 of our facilities. Those were wastewater pump stations on Anderson Drive, Market Terrace, Homestead Avenue, Plymouth Ave, wastewater on Central Street, wastewater pump station on Avon, the water vault on Spring Street, communication tower on Pleasant Street, Pudding Hill Water Tower, Mariners Drive, the animal control shelter on Clay Pit Road, and the wastewater plant campus on Joe Drebeck Way. So having the fiber optic, that's what's needed to really have a good IT connection and to be able to electronically, do things at the power plant, do things at the sewer plant, do things at the pump stations, things like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Anything you wanted to add, Todd or Jay? Perfect. Any questions or comments, Jim?
Just a quick one from the Commonwealth. I'm just taking out the letter here from Lieutenant Governor. It says, your application was chosen because it met the overarching goal of supporting the closing of critical gaps in municipal networks and connecting municipalities' own facilities to assist municipalities. So, as Administrator said, we're kind of on the front edge of this, and connecting these all up is going to be a definite help.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. Any questions or comments, Lynn?
Just a quick question, on page 3 of 19, description of work. It says an interconnection of 10 facilities, Todd, okay. where this is referring to 11 town sites. Is there a disconnect there?
I'd have to refer to Jalen, because this was right before my,
It says 10, but
It says just,
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it actually does.
Yeah, it says 10, but we did 11.
so that's just, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Good catch.
You know me. Sorry, everybody.
Thank you for reading that.
Like- It's like, yes, one extra. Thank you, that's it.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for your work on that too, guys.
I'll make a motion to approve from the town's ARPA funding the amount of $123,092 to cover the balance for the fiber optic cable installation to 11 town sites, $373,092 after the $250,000 from the municipal fiber grant was applied to the project. The contractor was Comtrack Corporation, Boxborough, Massachusetts. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, a motion made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to approve the $123,092.
Awesome. All right. So our first appointment is a change of stock interest for Rafferty's Pub. So first, I'll read the public hearing notice. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended that there will be a public hearing on Monday, February 27, 2023 at 6:35 p.m. in the Select Board Hearing Room, Marshfield Town Hall, 870 Moraine Street, Marshfield, Mass. 02050 on the application for change of stock interest for Bonnie Parkers, Inc., doing business as Rafferty's Pub, all alcohol restaurant, common vic liquor license, Michael Gibbons, manager. Premises located at 10 Snow Road in Marshfield, Mass. 02050. So all the paperwork's in. We've done this once before. It seems pretty straightforward. Am I missing anything, Michael?
No, I think it's just really, it's a stock allocation from one owner having 100% to dropping his ownership down to 85 and another person picking up 15%.
Great, thank you. And I know the parties are here tonight. If you wanted to say anything, you're more than welcome to, but you don't have to. All right, great. Any questions or comments, Jim?
No, it's a comprehensive package. I read through it.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions or comments, Lynn?
No?
All right, great. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve under Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws a change of stock interest for Bonnie Parkers Incorporated, doing business as Rafferty's Pub, located at 10 Snow Road in Marshfield, from Michael Gibbons, President, with 100% ownership, to Michael Gibbons with 85% ownership, and Ryan Stark with 15% ownership. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, a motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to approve the stock change.
Awesome. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming in. All right. Our next appointment is the South Shore Action Council presentation of the services they offer to residents. So if you guys wanted to come up, the floor is yours. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good,
Thanks for coming in.
thanks for having us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Kimberly Keith, and I am the Select Board's representative on the South Shore Community Action Council. And I'm here with Nikki Galabois, who is the Director of Planning and Development at SSCAC. And I am going to turn the majority of it over to her we're just here to give a brief update about the council and our activities and the services that we perform on behalf of Marshfield residents.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today about our work that we've been doing in the community and here in Marshfield and then throughout the South Shore and also Cape Cod and the islands. For folks who are not familiar with us, we've been around since 1965. We were founded along with over 1,000 other community action agencies as part of President Johnson's War on Poverty. We're one of 23 community action agencies here in Massachusetts. Our primary service area is the South Shore, so it extends from Hull down to Plymouth. However, we do have a service reach that extends as far west as Mattapoisett, almost the Rhode Island border, and then also we serve Cape Cod and the islands through our fuel assistance and early education programs. Across all of our locations, we have over 200 employees, just to give you a sense of our scope. And we have an all-volunteer board of directors. They're wonderful, including 3 residents for the town of Marshfield, so including Kimberly Keith, who is the representative for the select board. We also have Jim Stewart, who is our board vice president, who's a town resident, as well as Ray Joyal, the executive director of Sowing Seeds, sits on our board, as well as our low-income representative. So what is kind of unique about community action is that we do have that connection with our towns and with the low-income constituents that we serve directly through our board of directors. Let me see, do we have a slideshow or no?
Yes, I'm putting it in.
He's working on it. Excellent. We have visuals. I love visuals. So in addition, some other information I wanted to share with you today is, again, our scope of our footprint. We serve over 80 towns in southeastern Massachusetts, and the primary service area that we do serve is the South Shore, 11 towns. Those towns have seats on our board of directors and are represented, and so it's really a thing that's unique about community action, that we're locally informed, we're locally connected. We really do appreciate all of the partnerships that we have in our communities. And so it's important for us to be able to report back to you all about what we're doing on behalf of residents in your town. So as you can see, last year we served over 28,000 people, almost 29,000. That's up from prior years. Obviously, with the pandemic, we've had a lot of folks who are financially destabilized in the region. If we could go to the next slide, thank you very much. For Marshfield, just to give you a quick snapshot, we served over 750 residents. A basic profile of the folks that we serve from the town of Marshfield, a lot of them were older women, retired. That tends to be the case with programs where our home energy assistance is the largest service that's provided. A lot of our residents are elder folks who are on a fixed income and having a hard time paying their utility bills, and so we're able to help them out with that. Could we go on to the next slide, please? So just to give you a quick overview of the kinds of services that we were able to provide in the past year, our home energy assistance, also known as fuel assistance, is our largest program, both agency-wide and here in Marshfield. So we were able to serve over 250 households, nearly 260, 430 residents in total. For that program, what we do is we partner with fuel assistance, fuel providers, and we're able to make home energy payments on behalf of low-income households so that they can stay warm in winter. Thankfully, it's been a relatively mild winter this year, but with utility and fuel costs being what they are, I'm sure folks have heard the applications are significantly higher this year as compared to previous years. Similarly, our energy conservation programs, it's a cluster of programs that we use to help lower utility bills for low-income households so they can reallocate some of their budgetary money to other things like food and housing and clothes and things of that sort. Through those energy conservation programs, home weatherization, heating system repair and replacement, appliance management, we were able to serve just over 30 households. That's impacting about 60 residents. I've lost my sense of direction, but not very far from here is our early education center right on Webster Street. So it's a really fun place to go visit if you like kids. I love to be able to stop in there. We provide early Head Start, and state subsidized preschool there, so it's full of infants, toddlers, and preschool age children, lots and lots of energy. We're able to provide comprehensive programming, school bus transportation. We have nurses on site, daily meals and snacks for all of the kids, making sure that the kids get everything that they need in terms of wraparound care. We also have a lot of programming that we offer to support parents, which, as we know, is really, really important for the entire family. So we were able to help 66 Marshfield kids in the past year. Our transportation program, if you haven't seen one of these vehicles riding around, once you see it, you'll see them everywhere. When I first started working at South Shore Community Action Council almost 15 years ago, I swore they were following me because they cover a lot of miles, they cover a lot of service area. And so what we're able to do is actually transport folks door to door for medical appointments, adult day health programming, things of that sort for elderly and disabled people who don't otherwise have a way to get around. So it's a really important service that we're able to provide, knowing obviously that transportation is so challenging here on the South Shore. Next slide, please. Our food resources program operates a bit more like a food bank primarily than a pantry, so that we actually collect and distribute non-perishable and fresh food to other organizations, so food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters and such. And what we do is through that program, we're able to provide take-home food for the families at our early education program, the equivalent of almost 8,000 meals that we were able to send home with those families last year. Consumer aid, that's a community-based, non-legal mediation approach for consumer complaints. I'm trying to get some resolutions for folks so that they don't have to pay court fees and can save that money. So we were able to serve 38 Marshfield households that way. Emergency assistance, as you might imagine, this is a program that has grown since 2020. We launched it in response to the pandemic, and we're able to provide emergency rent and mortgage and utility and food assistance through that program for folks, a lot of them who are impacted by the pandemic for a variety of reasons. In total, we served 20 households through that program with 26 residents living in those households. And then lastly is our volunteer income tax assistance program, which is staffed by a team of volunteer tax preparers. They're certified by the IRS. They're a wonderful group of folks who come every year. They've been with us for probably 13 years at this point. And they just love to prepare taxes and save people money and get them the biggest refund that they can by making sure that they claim all of the credits they're eligible for. So it's a really wonderful program, and it's a special person who volunteers for it. So we're always looking if anybody's out there listening and loves numbers. So we were able to provide free tax preparation, state and federal preparation and filing of those tax returns for 27 households affecting 44 residents. And what we do know is from some of the research around some of these tax credits is that they do have long-term positive effects for the children in those households in terms of school achievement, college enrollment, and lifetime earnings. So it's a huge investment, not just for the taxpayer, but for the entire family. So that's a quick, and I do realize I was talking fast because I know we're minding the clock, but that's a quick rundown of what we've been able to do for Marshfield residents. And I welcome any questions. But before I do that, one thing I do want to also put on everybody's radar, we are in the process of going through a community needs assessment. It's a process that we do every 3 years as a community action agency. It's an overall piece of our results-oriented management and accountability system that we use in our organization, so that we assess community needs to make sure that the programs that we're offering are responsive to those needs. And so we are collecting a lot of data directly from low-income households and constituents, but we also like to hear from community partners and leaders such as yourselves to make sure that we know exactly what's happening in communities and are doing our best to respond to those needs. So you may have gotten a brief little survey to fill out. I would love it if you would do that, because that's also one of the things that I get to work on for the organization. And so if you could, that would be wonderful. It's a great opportunity to really share with what's going on with residents right here in the town. So I really appreciate that too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
I took a stab at answering on behalf of the residents, but I'd love your feedback eventually. You see it day to day, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
all right.
Yeah,
So any questions for us?
Yeah, well, first, we appreciate you both coming in, all the good work you do for our residents in town, and the fact that you've almost served 8,000 meals, and over 700 folks help with their energy assistance, which is huge with the prices being what they are right
Yeah.
now. Are there any other future plans that you wanted to touch on while you guys are here?
No, I think we're going to just keep on doing the work that we're doing. You know, the needs that we're seeing, I've been leading the organization's community needs assessment and strategic planning process for probably about 13 years at this point. And it's pretty much the same deck of cards that just gets shuffled every 3 years. So housing, food, transportation, education, those are really, you know, typically the top priority needs, and so we have a variety of programs that we try to offer, and we also acknowledge that we can't do it all, and so we do as best we can to partner with folks in the community, other organizations, to leverage those resources, coordinate services, and that kind of thing. So at this point, you know, just again, if you want to go and see the kiddos, I love the kiddos.
And there are some
It's a
current
lot of
openings for jobs
Yep.
as well at Head Start
Yeah, we do
here
have
in
openings
Marshfield.
there in Marshfield, yep, absolutely. So, but if you're able to fill out those needs assessments to let us know exactly what's going on, then we'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments, Jim?
Basically, I just want to echo my colleague here on how the important work that you do.
Thank
For
you.
854 or whatever it was, or 754, it's a lot of, 754 residents, in really important critical support to our citizens. So I want
Yeah.
to thank you for that in your organization.
Thank you.
You may have already touched on this. Do you expect anything significantly different when you do your Roma?
Well, it's an ongoing cyclical process. So so I think that what we'll find is that housing, you know, I don't think I'm telling anybody anything that you don't already know, but housing is really, really becoming so problematic. And, you know, I joined the organization in 2009, 2010, sort of just following the recession, when housing again and homelessness were such pressing problems, and the hotels and motels were full of families who were homeless. And I feel that same thing unfolding. I feel it happening. I see it happening. We're getting a lot more applications to our emergency assistance program of folks who are in the eviction process and have significant accumulated debt burden over the past 2 years. That I'm not sure how they'll be able to dig out. And so I feel like it'll be a long recovery. And so I do hope folks stick with us and don't get tired of hearing from us. But, you know, we're in it for the long haul, obviously. But I do think it will take quite a long time for families and individuals to recover. And I feel like housing is really kind of at the top of the priorities at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions or comments, Lynn?
Just the wraparound care is, you said it, that's it in a nutshell. I appreciate what you do. I just want to give you a little plug, because for folks, so it's sscac.org, and follow you on social media,
Absolutely.
and call 508-747-7575, right? Is there
Absolutely.
anything else that you need to tell folks other than us?
No. Definitely follow us. There's always updates on social media. We understand that's a great way to get information out, and there's a lot of updates to be had on a program-by-program basis, so it really is the best way to stay on top of everything that's going on in the community. Get involved. If you need help, give us a call. If you want to help, give us a call. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you all for
All right.
coming in.
Thank
you
you.
very
Oh, and I
much.
wanted to pass along that we got great feedback on Marshfield's rollout for the vaccinations at the fairgrounds. So I want to make sure you all know what a great job the town did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Have a
night.
nice night.
All right, next up, we have our appointment with the DPW. Tom, Rod, Dave, we appreciate you guys all coming in.
Good evening.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
Of course, thanks for coming in.
Well, I know we've talked about this for some time now, and it's nice to get before you and let you know what we're doing.
You brought Rod this time, too.
Yeah, well, just in case there's any technical questions, I have my right-hand man here for sure.
Perfect.
But thank you again, and Dave Carrier is also here with us. I figured I'd start with the transfer station.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had a few projects going on up there. The transfer station floor grates, as the capital had funded that, and we finally got the outfall pipes cleaned, and it's been completed. The building envelope inspection, we are working with a consultant to contract that. There's roof and wall repairs that will be required. Also, we're looking at a semi-permanent repair to the floors. Right now, there's so much activity up there with the machinery scraping and loading trucks that it's worn a lot of the concrete away and the rebar is exposed. So we need to do to repair there. It's probably some type of an epoxy that we're going to have to use. I think a thin-set concrete might not be strong enough. But that's something that we'll be looking at. And then there's the catch basin and composting. The beneficial reuse permitting is complete. We're just waiting on town forces to transport and mix the use for the repair of the cap. And we have identified a few areas with settlement, and we need DEP approval in order to address all of that. So that's ongoing, that we'll be doing that as the weather gets better, the repair of the floor and the cap stuff. Everything's a little wet right now. So we'll be screening it in-house and then spreading it up on the landfill, which we are permitted through DEP as a beneficial use with our catch basin cleanings and street sweepings. So that's what we'll be doing up at solid waste. Currently, the road work, the Dyke Road sluiceway, we've got the temporary supports have been installed and the water main's been replaced there. The sewer main needs to be lined, and right now we've got a bunch of projects, so it's in the queue right now for that to be lined up there. The Ocean Street culvert, that's also, we've been given money through capital there to do some repairs over there. The NOI is being prepared by the consultant, and work is scheduled in August of '23, when the water will be at probably its lowest, we hope. We hope that, and I say that with, hope, with my fingers crossed, with hope also, right? The Cross Street South River Water Main Crossing, the NOI is being prepared currently by our consultant, and we'll be looking at that August timeframe also, when the water is at its lowest level. The Dice Road, I mentioned the Dyke Road sewer through the sluiceway will be lined as we go forward. Brant Rock Esplanade traffic improvements. The horizontal design is 90% complete. Vertical design is underway. The Phase 1 we're talking about is Bullnose from South Street to Island Street. There's an NOI and flood permitting required for this project also. We will be having a public session on Monday, March 6th, to break out. The consultant will be there to show you the plan and how we plan on phasing it going forward and using the Complete Streets monies that we should, April, I believe it's May 1st is the deadline for the application for the Complete Streets for the next phase. Awesome. So we will be prepared to present that and move forward with that Complete Streets. Hopefully a lot of the questions can be answered on Monday night, so that we'll look forward to getting as many people to show up and get their input for this project.
Awesome.
The Willow Street Bridge preliminary design is complete. We received $219,000 in a Mass DOT grant for final design. The NTP was issued. Permitting outstanding pending $125K funding from the town, and that is something that is a capital request for this town meetings. Water main installation and pump stations. The generators at our two largest pump stations have been completed and installed. The Circuit Ave West water main, 2,300 linear feet. The water main is complete with a temporary patch. The roadside restoration will be completed this coming spring. The Circuit Ave, Surf Ave water main replacement. The work also includes drainage and some sewer work that will commence on or around the 14th of March. We had today our pre-construction meeting. There'll be a temporary bypass on both water and wastewater until we complete. The tentative finish date is sometime in August. So we hope, weather permitting there also, we'll be moving forward as, setting up the bypasses, and the dewatering will be required for the contractor. The Bridle Path water main was started in December and is about 60% complete. We made the connection under the Bridle Path bridge today, and we are moving forward with that. Spring Street well and Furnace Brook well number 3. The work will be advertised for the March 16th bid opening, and that is for the cleanings of those wells. And Furnace Brook well number 2, the completing is complete and the well pump has been replaced. Seawall repair work, Brant Rock Phase 2, North Street to Brant Rock. Wall was completed in June of 2022. The Loma required by FEMA is under final review right now. Brant Rock seawall repair damage from Riley. The contract was awarded in February. Contracts being signed by contractor. We hope to get started in March on that that part of the seawall up there. The work consists of roughly 200 linear feet of seawall cap repair, face repair, and about 50-foot section of sheet pile toe will be put into the wall, below the wall. Brant Rock High Road future seawall. The survey and easement plan preparation is underway along Ocean Street, Thomas Street to the trailer park. That's the next section that we'll be working on, hopefully to get to further the grants that we've received over the years on moving forward with the rest of the seawalls that need to be repaired. The Ocean Bluff revetment repair. The preliminary design is complete. The E&F application reported 95% complete, and the estimated replacement cost is roughly $35 million for that area. And that would, the Ocean Bluff revetment emergency repair at 232 and 542 completed 500 ton of stone that was placed in some of the voids to tighten that revetment up. But that's pretty much it for the seawall stuff. The wastewater, Plymouth Ave pump station force main. There's a new HDPE pipe force main installed, including bypass outside of the building, has been completed. The second road sewer replacement, there was 500 linear feet of 8-inch sewer replaced from Ocean to Plymouth Ave. Island Street sewer replaced 165 feet of 165 linear feet of 12-inch sewer replaced between Reed Street and the Esplanade. Camera inspection from Porter to Wrexham in good condition. Surf Ave, Wrexham to Ocean, and Ocean to Plymouth Ave pump station is not in very good condition, and we have submitted a special town meeting warrant article to line those mains before they get any worse. And that's, the majority of that is 36-inch concrete, reinforced concrete pipe. So we just had a camera crew go through there and inspect it, has given us a report at the end of last week. It's very intensive, lots of video and breakdown in the report of what we see in those videos. So, and it's rated based from poor to good. And so we'll be addressing those areas hopefully as we move forward. The second road, the camera inspection, the Plymouth Ave Pump Station rehab, the SRF application of $8.1 million was submitted and accepted. Preliminary design is complete, and we should have final design by July. The North Street, Middle Street, South Street sewer will be replaced starting in March, and will cross Ocean Street. The main is on the west side of the Esplanade, so we'll be crossing across to make that connection into that main. Ashburton, the planned replacement after North and Middle, South Street in the spring. Once that completed, that should be pretty much the updates needed in Brant Rock on the sewer. The Ashburton line is probably the oldest in town. Some of it is actually clay pipe, so it'll be good to get that replaced, especially in a lot of these low-lying areas. It's AC pipe or concrete pipe. It's in brackish, marshy atmosphere, and salt water. Concrete doesn't mesh well with salt water, so as long as it's been in the ground for over 50 years, we haven't had much, issues with that, but it is getting towards the end of its life. That's why we're cameraing and inspecting constantly. If we can line, we will line. That is a cheaper alternative than having to cut and replace the pipe completely. So by lining it, it gives us a few more years before you'd have to think about that. So that along with the Surf Ave lateral connections, the sewer laterals tying into Surf Ave will be replaced within the layout of Surf Ave prior to the road construction. So they plan on setting up the bypass, the dewatering, then they were going to do the sewer. That's the current plan right now. And then with NEPD's permit that takes effect on April 1st, we will be required to do an inspection annually of our outfall, and that will be required, and we have proposed requests out for proposal, and they should be due in on the 24th of March, and this inspection should be done by the fall. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions for us,
Sure, yeah.
more than open to answer questions.
Perfect. Well, again, we appreciate you both coming in. I think it's great to get together and talk about the long-term planning for the town and to get us on the same page since we're on the same team. So it means a lot that you guys came in today, and we really appreciate it. I just have a couple of questions, and I'm sure Jim and Lynn do as well, so we'll just kind of go around. So one thing I wanted to talk about, and it's definitely like kind of something to keep in mind. I know there's a lot of moving parts, but in terms of the sewer plant, what's kind of our game plan to protect that from rising sea levels?
We've looked at that, and we've had consultants look at it, and Rod could give us a little more information on it.
So one of the things that some of the communities are looking at is putting some sort of a barricade around the sewer plant. But after discussing the issue with our plant operator, Clint Stetson, during the 2018, when we had some pretty significant flooding, the plant wasn't really flooded in that particular event. But what the real problem was, the infiltration, the inflow into the plant through the piping was a problem, and he almost lost the plant When I say lose the plant, that means you lose the functionality of the treatment, the bugs that treat the wastewater. You get inundated with salt water, and the whole process can stop. And fortunately, he had and his crew moved quickly, and they isolated a lot of their functioning wastewater, and were able to deal with the flooding that was going on. So that is probably the most important thing we got to address. And if we need more tankage, or if we need more backup pumps, we need to look at that a little bit close. That would be the most significant improvement that we could make. If we could have a game plan, standing operating procedure when this happens, and have the equipment and whatever available, tankage available to be able to deal with that, that's probably priority number one.
Yep.
Then we can look at maybe putting in some sort of a, maybe sheet pile with a berm or something like that, get the elevation up around the perimeter, and then, that would help. But I think priority is really looking at, the flooding of the plant. If we can't, if we can't keep that station functioning, it could be a month before you could get the actual system running again.
Yeah.
And what often happens is you have to go to other plants to get the wastewater from the bugs that are surviving, and then bring them over to your plant, and to try to get the plant and the process running again. A lot of times it doesn't even work because you have different wastewater, and so that's something that we've been talking about. We haven't really moved in any direction yet, but we're talking about that, and we've met with our consultants, with the Plymouth Ave pump station design, moving ahead, those types of questions were asked at that facility. One of the things we are doing is putting a little bit of a barrier around the plant, more so for recovery. So if you ever do get the sea level rise, if you get the flooding in that area where the water, comes up to the base flood elevation, you want to make sure you can recover that plant, with minimal damage. You won't probably be able to function during a flood like that.
Yeah.
But getting back in once the flood recedes, you'll have less problems at the plant. And so we're looking at that, and also being able to shut the wastewater off coming in, and probably mostly salt water coming in, with valving. And so that's being looked at as well, so.
I think that's the biggest concern, more so in the infiltration than the flooding of the plant itself, because a lot of that salt water is coming in through our manholes. When the Esplanade's underwater or Duxbury Beach is underwater, we have, a lot of our manholes are bolted down, and we've actually caught them opening them on us.
Yeah.
And salt water, as Rod said, kills the bugs, and the bugs are the major component of the treatment process. So it's more so the infiltration and having the ability to shut those down, those valves down, and isolating salt water coming into the plant. That's what benefited us back a few years ago, was they were able to shut that down and isolate the bugs so that we could continue.
Yeah, that's great. So in terms of maybe like a possible phase one, do you guys think that increased tankage and more pumps would help us in terms of a phase one approach, or what would be the best first step to
Something
take?
along those lines. We're going to get a consultant in there and just kind of walk through what happened.
Yep.
They lost control somehow,
Yeah.
and we'll just have to sit down and just go step by step. What do you need? And what do you think will help us out in the future in similar type flooding events?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a complicated, issue to tackle. So that was very helpful. So thank you. If we were unlucky in 2018, how many residents would be impacted if the plant got shut down?
Well, we have about 4,700 connections,
Yep.
both commercial and residential.
Okay. Thank you. And I know it's an issue every town is facing, like state, federal, local level, aging infrastructure. What's kind of our game plan to tackle aging sewer pipes and water pipes and any possible technology that, might be able to help us out?
Well, we've got the equipment now, the updated equipment for Vector, and the camera truck is due to be shipped tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that enables us to get out and do more inspections.
Yeah.
I guess we've applied for capital monies. We've applied for ARPA monies, SRF monies to start to address where we've identified some of these areas that the marsh where there's AC pipe, and we need to address that probably first
Yeah.
as we proceed, but it all depends on the funding.
Yep. Understood. So in terms of piping, probably AC piping would be the first one to target, and then you're saying some areas still have clay piping that are really older
Well,
parts of town?
Ashburton really is the only spot that has the gray surfaces, so
Yeah.
we'll replace the clay.
Ductile iron, Tom mentioned that there was more concrete pipe, but the concrete pipe wasn't in that bad a shape. The aggregate was exposed, indicating that the gases were eating away at some of the cement. But the ductile iron was the big question mark. We saw a lot of delamination of the cement lining in there, and when we did the Force Main on Plymouth Ave, we noticed that the pipe had a few areas where there were problems, but it wasn't until we actually had a leak out there that we went and test pitted everything from the outside. In other locations, we did some initial test pitting and found nothing.
Yeah.
But then we were addressing a leak, and we found out that, there was some deterioration in an area too. So that's why we moved on getting that lined ASAP, because that was a critical piece. It handles about 2/3 of your wastewater, and we just couldn't afford to not address that. But down in on Surf Ave, we've got 24, 36, and there's certain sections of different sizes, but larger diameter ductile iron pipe, and they're down about 12 feet, and they're sitting on piles. And we noticed with this type of delamination from the inside, we should really line that. And that's why they said that was basically the poorest section. And then eventually we can get to the concrete, which was in better condition. But the ductile iron down in that, the soils, where it's acidic, is a problem. And right now they put a plastic wrapper around the pipe when you install ductile iron down in those areas to help with the corrosion. They didn't do that back then. But you still got almost 50 years out of it, but still you should be able to get more out of ductile iron.
Yeah.
So, but that ductile iron is also a priority
Awesome.
to line or replace.
Yeah. Thank you. I know this is a big one too, but in terms of like the dike replacement and the gates, I know that's kind of a big long-term issue to tackle. Can you guys walk us through that?
Okay, so we did apply for a grant. Initially, we were because of potential opportunities, we thought we could get a design build type grant where we would go for, $6 or $7 million, I forget the number. And, it would include design and the whole thing, replacement. If we got it, we got it.
Yeah.
But we weren't ready, according to the people that had the hazards mitigation grant people that we were applying with, and they basically, and with our consultant, pared the project down to basically, it went from design and construction to design and then to preliminary design.
Yeah.
Because of the type of project it was and similar type projects that they saw where the permitting was going to take a lot more, they thought. So they basically pared us down. We amended our application to a preliminary design only. And so that application hasn't been accepted yet, but we submitted the application, and they reviewed it, and they forwarded it to the feds, I guess, for review. And we won't know till July if we are successful there. But the dike needs to be, that sluiceway probably needs to be at least repaired. I mean, at least $2 to $3 million of repair is required. And if we can work through some of these grant programs and get, 90% participation in funding, I think that's kind of where we're going with it right now. Because it's a big funding item, so that's what we're doing. We're waiting to hear from them, and then we'll have to get consultants involved, go through an RFP process, and kick off with a preliminary design.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rod.
Yeah.
And then we talked about this before. I know we've talked about how the last sewer expansion we did in the early 2000s and kind of Black Mount because of the nitrate levels, and then Kent Park we kind of looked at for a future expansion. Do you guys have a sense for maybe the timetable for the next sewer expansion?
Well, we've submitted a request in the special for $100,000 to do a sewer assessment of where we proceed from here, whether it's the 139 corridor, the Telegraph Hill area, or the Ferry Hill area. Those are the three. Black Mount, we have that study already done. So we need to do that in phases because of the cost involved in that also.
Yeah.
So, we've submitted that for phase one to take a look at what's the next steps in the sewer program.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the Brant Rock project we talked about earlier with the bullnose design, is Complete Streets funding only available for the project as a whole, or is it an application potential for each phase of the project?
What it is the grant, the $500,000 you get initially, then you can't apply again. It's either 2 or 3 years before you can apply for future funds.
Got it.
So.
And I know you were great months ago about bringing up safe streets to schools and how that would open up some great, grant pool and opportunities for us. And I know sidewalks are expensive, but, what's kind of a realistic view on the horizon for where we might put some sidewalks in town, or what kind of the best process to take is?
Well, that is, every school now has to be an individual member to that Safe Routes to School. So in talking with the school department, every school now is registered as one of those schools, so that there is monies available. We did apply for some crosswalk signalization through that program. So we haven't heard yet whether or not we got accepted for it, but that would just be a warning for crosswalk ahead type signals that we could get for one location. So we applied for that, but that's something that we will keep our eyes open for, any type of funding. Right now, other than that little piece, there isn't any other Safe Routes to School funding available, but that could change come July.
Got it.
And with the new governor, that could also see some increased funding there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Any questions or comments, Jim?
You covered a lot, and I want to thank you both for coming in. I think this is really great. It's very informative for me, and I know people watch your meetings and some watch ours, so it has a chance maybe to reach more people so they understand what's going on. Not a ton of particular stuff. You were talking about, I think Rod, you were saying lining the sewer, or maybe yourself, Tom. You said it buys us some years. How many, is it a decent payoff, or is it not that many years for the amount of money you spend, or?
Oh, yeah, you can get a lot of life out of,
When you line 'em?
20, 30 years easily, depending on the situation.
So that's a lot then. It's not a few years. You can
Right.
really extend their life.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Yes.
we did our initial cured in place polyester pipe lining circa 2005 and 6 on Plymouth Avenue with the gravity main where they had been deteriorated. And that is still in satisfactory condition at present, to the best of my knowledge. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, it is, yeah.
So that tells you, it's 10-plus years gone by.
Yeah, more than that, yeah.
Yeah, it tells up, good.
Great. Do you anticipate any problems with the outfall pipe study?
No?
You know what the problem's gonna
We'll
be?
watch, well, we had some
It
areas
exposes,
that
right?
we were going to address a while back ago. It was more of an opportunity. We didn't have to address it. It wasn't that major, but we were proceeding to replace like a 100-foot section. And one, just to make the repair, and also to see what the condition of the inside of the pipe was also a goal as well. It's only really a 40-foot, but we ordered like a 100-foot repair. The price came in 3 times more than when the engineer estimate was, and we just said, you know what, right now, I think we're gonna just inspect periodically until we, we see different, if other issues come up. So,
That's what you're doing.
right, so that's what we're doing. So, we hadn't inspected in a while. We had some money from a previous town meeting, and now EPA is requiring you to inspect. So the timing is good. Once we get into the new permit period, we have the funding to move ahead. And so, in March, hopefully we'll get proposals. It's pretty tough to get consultants. You have to drag the consultants because they're just so busy right now, getting caught up, short staffed still, and some of the offices have been closed, and they're, it's difficult to get the consultants to jump at some of these proposals. But we do have one that they had done the original one, and they've committed to like a March, end of March date to get us a proposal so we can move forward. And hopefully we'll get the inspection done by the fall. They might do it in 2 phases. They might send their camera out there and then send divers after that, depending on their workload. But we'll know in March what they propose.
Thanks,
When
Ron.
we looked at the last time we looked at repairing going out there, there's only one manufacturer of the pipe, and they will not, and it's not sitting in some yard waiting for you to order it. They make it when
custom.
you order it. It's custom made. It's a spun pipe, so it's the way it's manufactured is much different than a regular pipe. And then again, when we went out, there was time restrictions on the time of year we could go out there.
Yeah.
And it was actually this time of year, January, February. And
Yeah, when we did the repairs.
when we
it
did
was
the repairs,
ridiculous.
so, I mean, who's the worst time of year to go out on the water? And that's when they expect us to do it. So it's challenging. And like Rod said, just trying to get someone to get out there and do the dive and do the inspection was difficult at the time. And so that's one of our obstacles in getting that accomplished.
We anticipate there probably are gonna be some diffusers that need to be cleaned. There's a big field at the end where all the wastewater, the clean effluent is dispersed. And sometimes it might be coming out of, 3 or 4 of them on one side and, not on the other side or whatever. Gets plugged by growth and things like that. So we anticipate. The thing is, this one firm has, and we have the report from when it was done last, and we'll be able to look at, what the conditions are at this point to get an idea of how much degradation we have in the diffusers.
We did do a little repair on the beach too when it was exposed.
Well, that was gonna be my follow-up question. Do you feel that's resolved, the
No.
pipe exposure?
No, it's not
The
resolved.
scouring down there, once we get, we know what we can do down there for beach nourishment or stone or whatever they're gonna allow us to put on the beach down there, we'll be part of the equation.
Yeah, we're also thinking about maybe wrapping it with something, but I want it low profile, just to protect it. It's a concrete pipe and it's getting worn.
Saltwater,
But
concrete.
it never used to be exposed that often. And they said it like every 10 years you would see the exposure. There's just no material coming back.
No, when you arm with the coast, there is no nourishment.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's the mechanism, natural mechanism.
It's making a difference. That's exposed.
So, just a quick follow-up on that, because I understand we can have the greatest system in the world, but if the clean effluent can't get out, everything stops, right?
Right.
Do you think that's like an ABC priority? Where do you think that, is that high, low?
Well, the pipe isn't, it's not like it's, cracked or anything like that.
No,
But
I'm
it
just
is a
saying, getting
priority.
beat up is what I mean.
It is a priority. We just haven't figured out what we want to do yet. We were thinking of putting some sort of articulated concrete blanket, which was similar to what we did back when we addressed the outfall pipe. Further out, where we had a lot of currents, the outfall pipe was
Wandering?
yeah, it was getting moved around a little bit because of the currents. So we put an articulated concrete pipe blanket over that for, I don't know how many feet, but, in areas where they needed it. But something similar to that, but it's just a huge profile. We contacted the manufacturer, and their engineers did not recommend it. They didn't think it would do the job. So we're thinking about something more custom, like maybe a steel or maybe a concrete steel combination, something low profile, so that, but we don't want to disturb the peat that's left and right, because that seems to be keeping everything together. So you're not getting any scouring or anything like that. So that was one of the things that we're looking at, something that would not disturb the peat, because that natural piece seems to be doing a good job by keeping that from getting undermined.
Fragile and difficult environment, and then you've got time of year issues, but yeah, it seems like when it's exposed concrete, it's going to get beat up, no doubt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a timeline of the projects? We spent a lot of time talking about the sewer plant, whether it's infiltration, capacity we seem to have, expansion, maybe a revetment around, whatever it would be. Do you have, and you guys clearly articulate it very easily, so you've got it, I know you've got it. Do you have a written plan of what you want to attack first, how you want to attack it, so we have an idea on, costs and funding, or?
Well, that's kind of the idea of doing the sewer assessment, and that gives us an idea of what direction we want to go in, which is the most critical direction that needs to be addressed first. So by getting that assessment in place, that gives us a working document to go off of.
Okay, thank you, Tom, because I mean, you know this way better than I, so pardon me if I ask just not really educated questions, but it sort of all went in at the same time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And we've fixed some things.
Right.
But, so it's all getting old at the same time. It's like you buy a brand-new house, and then every appliance in the house is 20 years old at the exact same time.
Oh, we
and you
made
have to replace it.
substantial investments in that plant. So there's the plant's,
We have
got
like
plenty of
a
life
fair amount of
left.
excess capacity too, right?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot more than we thought.
Yeah,
When Sewer 2000 came through, we thought we were going to be close to the
now,
end.
right?
Yeah, we were going to probably be at like 1.8 out of 2.1 million available, but we're down around 1.4. So we got room for expansion. So, by updating this master plan or comprehensive wastewater master plan, we'll be able to discuss where we want the rest of the sewer and or possibly expansion of the plant. I mean, there's room in there to add another clarifier. There's room to expand a little bit there.
Tankage or whatever we need to do.
Exactly.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jim. Lynn?
I have a couple questions, but I know the time is clicking along. Okay. So last time we talked about the Brant Rock Bullnose, and I know you're working on that. I know you have a plan in place to prepare, that you're prepared for the public and other folks around town. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. The sidewalks are important, and I understand the schools and that. Can you tell me for sure, are the schools currently up to par on their requirement, as you just earlier described, for the new regulations?
For the safe routes to school?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, by having signed up to be members, it qualifies them now for any available funding that becomes available, whether it's speed limit signs, crosswalk signs, building handicap ramps for crosswalks, the curb cuts and stuff. I think it was 3 years ago they had a grant. That's when I found out that each school had to be registered as an individual
Okay,
for us to be eligible for that funding.
okay,
So when I applied for it, didn't know that at the time, and it got kicked back because we weren't registered. So now that we are, as soon as one becomes available, we'll be eligible to apply.
so so what you're telling me is we have to be eligible to apply, and then we determine what steps are necessary. We accumulate the funding, and then we get working on it? Is that what you're telling me?
No, what happens is the state comes up with a set dollar amount within the Safe Routes to Schools. And then within that, they have programs like the solar crosswalk lights, high visibility lighting,
Right,
speed limit signs. Those are the things right now that they've been offering.
okay,
Sidewalks, they haven't offered any funding for
Okay.
sidewalks.
okay,
So, and that's where the Complete Streets comes in, but it's that initial 500,000, and then you gotta wait a couple of years before you can apply for it again.
right. So, since you just started, so the complete streets, so where do we stand on getting some of our streets here in town into the program and accounted for? And I know that there are limitations on some of the planning regulations and OSRDs and things like that, that just are maybe a roadblock in the process for getting some streets adopted. But do you have a list of potential streets and how that can help us in that funding?
Well, that's a different source of funding. That's Chapter 90.
Right, and this,
All
we
right,
were
so-
talking Chapter 70.
Right, Chapter 90 is one of probably 5 different, the Downtown Initiative, the Complete Streets, Safe Routes to Schools. They all fall under that cap, that
Right.
DOT transportation.
Right,
The sidewalks can be funded through the Chapter 90. The only money we can spend from Chapter 90 is on an accepted roadway.
okay,
So we have about 35 miles of unaccepted roads, dirt
Right.
roads and unaccepted roads. The last time that we accepted roadways was back quite a few years ago, prior to my time. So that,
Close enough.
so the projects that we have in place, we can't spend a dime on the unaccepted roads.
right,
So that's why we haven't had, the board put a moratorium on accepting roadways back before I was here because there wasn't adequate funding to support accepting those roads in order to maintain them. We get about $5,000 a lineal, $5,000 a lane mile for a road that's accepted.
okay. I'm just trying to identify here in town, I mean, all of us drive around, right? We know where there are crosswalks that need a little more paint. There's probably a list, and you probably in your head know it like that, right? So I'm just trying to understand the goals of what you have in place, when we'll be able to understand the outline. I mean, you've got a list there that went on and was A++, but coming from a standpoint as select board member and citizen, we just want to understand, when are you going to get to, and your new Facebook notices, that was a nice start to getting that that communication back and forth. So that's a step in the right direction.
We have a
But-
pavement management program that a consultant has done for us, and we paid for it through our Chapter 90 funds. And the state is requiring that everyone have a master plan for their paving. And so we can go to, it's upgraded every couple of years. So what we do is we use that as our reference. They're rated on a 1 to 10 basis, so we know whether they need just a maintenance, or whether they need just crack sealing. Does it need a full depth reclamation? Is it just an overlay? Is there drainage? And things like that. So we have this manual that is our road Bible per se, but again, it all comes down to funding. We get $756,000 in Chapter 90 money. That doesn't go a long way. We use some of Chapter 90 to purchase paint and to pay for line painting. 2 years ago, it was $40,000 to sub out the yellow and white lines on our main roads. And this year, it's $80,000. So it's doubled. It's more than doubled, actually. It's $83,000. So that again, and we couldn't get paint during COVID, so they weren't making it.
And it was twice as expensive as you just described.
Right, and people say, well, why don't you use thermoplastic? Thermoplastic it's a reflective, and it's a little thicker. It doesn't hold its reflectivity very long, and it's 6 times the cost of painting lines.
Okay,
So it's actually cost prohibitive for us.
okay.
And but to get back to your point, we go by that manual to determine
Okay.
what roads are in the worst shape. And after a bad winter, our consultant will go out and look at those roads again and come back and update that previous plan.
Okay. So the final thing is, as you were going through your spiel, you said notice of intent on probably 5 or 6 projects. So I know what that means, and that means time, it means design costs, it means definite, like, dot your i's, cross your t's. So are there any of those projects that you feel at this particular time are going to be a little bit more than what we are going to need to do as a town? Are there any, like, we're gonna be all in, and then all of a sudden we're gonna have to pull and come up with some other sort of a plan? Or do you feel like those notice of intents will be?
I think
Will
they
be good.
work because we have the consultant do that and have them go to the meetings and apply for all of that.
Okay,
So.
so you feel good about them?
Yes.
And so your timelines?
They're not
Not
very
to
big
intrude.
jobs.
Yeah.
It's just,
Okay,
it's been put on the back burner a couple of times because
Right.
we pull them off one job and we put them on another one. Like
Right.
Willow Street, we had to move on that job. That just came out of the blue. So, the priority was for us, it changed, and it's changed several times. So our consultant, who's very good, dropped everything and moved to the
Yep.
next project. So
Yep.
sometimes that happens. These aren't very big projects to do. We'll get them done. We have to wait until the dry period, but that's-
Right.
those two I think that he mentioned are
We have a
something
good
we should be
working
able to handle.
relationship
Yeah.
with the conservation
Yeah.
department also, so
Yeah.
that helps also.
and that's a good thing too.
Yes.
Everybody communicating and getting things done correctly. So the last question, and I think that maybe this may be something we need to revisit at the next meeting, but it's the emergency funds. And where does the board maybe, or your, I know the engineering's got their things covered, but the emergency funds as far as the seawall repairs, all of the other things where our ratepayers are putting in the money, and can you just expand on that and how that will come to play as you come into town meeting, maybe as we move forward?
Well,
The seawall one.
the seawall.
The one we had
Just, yeah,
from-
one that's
for
more
Ocean
simple,
Bluff is
maybe. I
pretty
know
much
that's a
used
big
up.
umbrella, yeah.
We've gone out there twice and probably spent close to $200,000 addressing issues. We get, somebody calls, says that there's a lot of raveling of the stone, and we make arrangements to get out there and get them, do whatever we can to get it done. Go to conservation, get an emergency declaration, and then we go out and we address the issue.
Okay.
And we're trying to do, try to address the long-term repair, through this Ocean Bluff revetment project.
Right.
Which we're still working on. But as far as those emergency funds, they're pretty much spent, I believe. I don't know, I haven't had the latest on that. Then you've got water, sewer.
Right.
There are so many departments, and each one of them
Right.
have a
Right.
responsibility for an emergency fund, correct?
And
I'm
they're
just-
they're
right,
intact
so-
right now, both
Yep.
of them, right?
Yeah, they're in good shape.
We're intact right now. We have the full 100,000 in water, and I think the full 100,000 in wastewater.
Wastewater.
I think I saw
Going
those
forward.
numbers on the, yeah, okay.
But I think at some point, there probably needs to be a sit-down with both boards
Right,
to try to determine how to proceed, especially with the sewer upgrades.
yep,
I know sewer 2000, we did a split with the general fund to try to offset some of the costs on the ratepayers where it benefits the whole town. And that's something I think that in the near future, we're going to need to sit down and have a discussion
right.
on how we might
Yeah.
be able to proceed.
Totally.
I think that's one of the most important things. I mean, I know there's a priority list, but understanding that we have our finances all in check as we move forward into this future. So I hope Clint is correct, and that treatment plant will be okay at the next big storm, knock on wood, that we don't see one in
Yes,
my
we've
lifetime.
been fortunate
But,
this year and last year.
yeah.
That was like a
so-
50-year event, something
Yeah.
like that. It was pretty big.
Well, I'm getting older, so maybe in my lifetime. But thank you for coming, and thank Dave as well for being here and offering his input, so I appreciate it. That's it, thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Tom, in terms of newer streets that are up to code and in theory less likely to need attention for a while, is there a list of roads you'd be interested in accepting to increase Chapter 90 funding?
We would, we would need that list. We'd need to go out and do an inspection on that list to determine if all of those roads are up to par. There, if there's any deficiency in the drainage or anything like that, we would have to, make sure that that was addressed before we took it over.
Sure. How long do you think that process would take?
Well, we started it a few years ago by looking at all of the private roads and we were gonna do that. We started to do that book over of our roads.
Yep.
To determine if there were any roads that we missed that may have been accepted.
Yep.
And we did come across one that we thought was a private road,
Yep.
but we actually found out that it was Holly Road. There was a section up there.
That's right.
That we were under the impression wasn't an accepted part of the road.
Yeah.
And then we found out that it was. And so we were able to address that with public funds.
Yeah.
So, but, it's a process that the board needs to address on how, and we've got to get back with town council on this, because we did have a few roads that we were going to accept, and we need to upgrade our road acceptance policy.
Yeah.
And that will require, I think, a vote of the planning board, the board of selectmen, and the Department of Public Works.
Bob is here if you want to ask him.
Yeah,
for his input.
Bob has been working on that for us for a while, so we need to get back to the table on that.
Okay.
And finalize that and get a vote of all three boards to accept it.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that something where, all three boards need to accept it? Is it best to have, I guess you guys be step one, or who would be best to take step one in terms of voting to accept it?
Well, I guess we would, the Board of Public Works would take the first step.
Yep.
And then present the roads and all the policy, and then each board, I believe, will have to take a vote
Yep.
to accept it.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
Mr. Chairman.
And
Yes.
I'm not sure if it needs to go to town meeting though either.
Thanks, Tom. Yep.
One thing for the position of the board is, for a number of years, we did receive funding from the general fund to supplement the state,
Yep.
money. That has been held back over the last few years, and, restoration of that, one of the things that I have looked at that I think should be, a modification probably to the capital bylawing, would be to set a town's contribution that is a percentage of the annual from the state for Chapter 90. That would kind of set up a inflation-adjusted, levelized funding. And as Tom pointed out, $5,000. When we looked at this back in 2019, 2020 timeframe, before the COVID, basically you were getting about a quarter mile of road reconstruction for the $5,000 per lane mile that you were getting from the state. With the way costs have gone up for bituminous concrete and the like, you're not getting that anymore, and labor costs on top of that. So, getting some additional supplemental funding, from the general fund to support roadway work is one of the incentives that the board has been looking for since back in the circa 2004, 2005 timeframe, when Jeb DeLoach was superintendent and the board was on time to time.
Thank you, Dave. If we had to make emergency repairs to our water and sewer lines, how much emergency funding do we have in retained earnings?
Right now, we have about 450,000
Okay.
in both water and wastewater.
Collectively between the two, or each
No,
one is
each.
450? Okay.
Is that right?
Well, we've got some of our capital. This is that,
Right,
this is what,
capital.
yeah, so
Is that today?
so the current, what we have right now is, 1,168,000 in water, 1,542,000 in wastewater, and 1,306,000 in solid waste. As that was of 7/1, and then we have our capital budget that we're moving forward with.
That's what brings it down to the 450,
Yeah, something like that. And
somewhere in that ballpark.
Thank you. And then just one, constituent email that I got, it's, the end of Old Ocean Street with the drainage. I could be off base, but do you guys have an update on what's going on with the drainage at the end of Old Ocean Street?
That's the culvert that I talked about, the Old Ocean Street culvert repair,
Okay.
where it puddles there.
Yes.
As you make that bend, yeah, we'll be addressing that.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't know if you know Brendan Wills, but
No, you've probably seen the trucks out there.
Yeah.
Last week, and they had the road actually closed off. They were trying to pump it down.
yeah.
So that should be alleviated once we can get in there and do that repair.
Awesome. That's great.
they gotta cut a root out of there.
Yeah.
They weren't able to jet it properly, and there's a root growing in there. They gotta reach in there and get that out, or dig a hole around the basin to get at it from the outside.
And then just a huge ballpark is fine, it doesn't have to be particular, but to give an idea of the scope of the project and the cost, roughly how many crosswalks do we have in town, and how many do you think we can get to like each fiscal cycle?
We usually paint every crosswalk in town annually. Ideally, we would like to get it done in the springtime,
Yeah.
weather permitting. We start as soon as we can, but that, we'd like to have them all done by no later than the 4th of July.
Mhm.
And I think last year we did. The year before we didn't, but last year we did. So, we try to stay on top of that, and again, the cost of the paint and the paint supply, we've already been promised we'll have our paint this year for our crosswalks.
Yeah.
So we've already been told that they have our paint, so
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about that.
That's great.
Yeah, so the crosswalks, and it's all weather dependent, because they do it at night. It can't be wet, the temperature has to be a certain temperature. So if we have rain, or if rain's in the forecast, that kind of sets us back.
Sure, absolutely.
So if we have a wet spring, that could prolong the completion of the crosswalks.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other climate resiliency things we need to take into account for the sewer plant, or have we covered those tonight?
If there's other than the ARPA and the SRF funding, I'm not,
Possible solar,
the solar,
is that still going forward?
yeah, that stuff, yeah, there's solar
Not really.
that are gonna go on the wastewater plant.
Yeah.
But funding avenues, they're, other than what's out there right now, the coastal resilience, and there are programs out there that if we are eligible for, we'll apply for.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you guys have any updates on the Willow Street Bridge project?
The Willow Street is, we've got funding to finish the permitting that we requested at this town meeting. The preliminary design is complete. We received the 219 Mass DOT grant for final design, and permitting is outstanding pending the 125K that we requested at town meeting.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys suffering through this and bearing with us for such a long period of time, and I hope there's a cold beer waiting for you when you get home.
I don't know about that.
Maybe a warm soup.
That might be more. No, but I thank
bowl of
you
ice
for
cream.
the opportunity.
Yeah.
And, maybe this is something that we need to do more frequently.
Yeah, make it like a semi-regular thing.
If you want to do it quarterly or whatever, however you want to do it, I'm more than open.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that way we're all on the same page, and, you're not hearing things through the grapevine.
Exactly.
You're hearing it right from the horse's mouth, so
Yeah, that's perfect.
look forward to that.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing.
Excellent.
And thanks, Rod, for coming this time.
No
Because he
problem.
was
Thank you.
alone sitting there, and he
No, I
probably.
wouldn't have come without him. He's, the wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
What he knows,
He
what
does.
he's probably forgotten. Is more than what a lot of us in our town might know.
100%.
Thank you.
Very valuable person.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
again.
Thank you
Tom.
both
Thanks,
very
Rod.
much.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Well, we appreciate a very particular crew bearing with us, so I'm going to read the public hearing notice for our yogis. So notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended that there will be a public hearing on Monday, February 27, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Hearing Room, Marshfield Town Hall, 870 Marine Street in Marshfield, 02050, on the applications for transfer of annual wine and malt package store and seasonal all alcohol package store licenses, pledge of inventory, and pledge of collateral from Yogi's Enterprises, Incorporated, doing business as Yogi's Liquors, Yoginder Shahan, manager, to Ocean Market and Liquor Incorporated, doing business as Ocean Market and Liquor, Bhadresh Patel, manager. Premises located at 915 Ocean Street, Marshfield, Massachusetts, 02050, and described as one floor of a two-story building that is approximately 7,421 square feet with 2 entrances and 2 exits. And I know your attorney is here on Zoom, so we won't skip over you. But it appears all their paperwork is in order. Am I missing anything, Michael?
Nope, everything's in order, Mr.
Awesome.
Chairman.
So if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to speak, but you're not required to. Awesome. Thank you. Did your attorney like to add anything, or are you all good to move forward?
Nope, I think we're all set. Unless Bhadresh has anything specific to add, we're good to go.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for waiting and for coming in tonight. All right, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the transfer of an annual wine and malt package store and seasonal alcohol package store licenses, pledge of inventory, and pledge of collateral for Yogi's Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Yogi's Liquors. Yohinder Sahan, manager, to Ocean Market and Liquor Incorporated, doing business as Ocean Market and Liquor for Bhadresh Patel, manager, and the premises located at 915 Ocean Street in Marshfield. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to approve the transfer.
Awesome. All right, thanks for coming in, guys. Greg,
Thanks, everyone.
are you here for a particular action item, Greg?
805 multi-hazard mitigation plan.
Am I missing
Right,
that?
these two.
No.
Oh, perfect.
Under appointment.
Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you. Sorry. All right, so, yeah. Next up is our appointment for the Conservation Administrator. And so first up, we have Michael Seal, and then next up after that, we have Kyle Holden. And so first, we'll do Michael, and both candidates will be receiving the exact same list of questions in fairness, so.
So you get to go first.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Would anybody like a copy of my resume?
Sure.
Perfect.
Thanks, Michael.
I have that here, Michael.
Lynn, would you like one?
Yes, please.
Sorry, Greg, if you were an action item, I would have taken you out of order. All right, well, thank you very much, Michael. So we'll just go each in turn as we go through it. So I'll ask the first question, Jim will go second, and then Lynn will go third, and we'll just kind of work through our set of questions here. So the first question that we have for you is, tell us about your professional background and describe your understanding of this position and what you know about the town of Marshfield in relation to conservation.
So my background's all environmental. I have a degree from Boston University in Environmental Analysis and Policy. I worked with some DEP and EPA regulations regarding hazardous waste management prior to this, and also due diligence reports for property transactions mostly. And I've been the acting conservation administrator for the last 4 months and the agent since last April 2022.
Thank you, Michael.
No problem. And then in regards to my relationship with Marshfield, I'm from the South Shore. I always came to Marshfield to enjoy the beaches and the natural scenery, so I do have a deep love and appreciation for this town.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
No problem.
Thanks for coming in, Michael.
Thank you, Jim.
So, average resident is looking to do a project, but he may not be familiar with the regulations. I know that never happens. How would you help them navigate through this process?
I would I'd first have a meeting with them, phone call, or sit down at my desk, see what their goals are for their project, see which bylaws might be relevant for their project, and then point out some specific bylaws. Also point out some common practices done with maybe a project that they're doing. Try to help them achieve their goal while also maintaining the bylaw.
Great. Would there be something specific, like, I know if you have standard operating procedure, someone comes in and say, okay, we've got this project. Would there be some specific tools that you might use, whether it's DEP, overlay maps, whatever, to make sure, help them move on their way to be a successful project, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, so firstly, we check our database of projects. Luckily, we have a very digitized set of plans and records from all previous permitting through conservation in the town of Marshfield. So we can look at maybe wetland lines that were done on that property or near that property in recent history. We can look at the Marshfield flood map app, which is very useful in pointing out where the flood zones are, and also where it's a good rough estimate of where other resource areas might be. Or the Mass DEP wetland and wetland change map is also very good for identifying areas such as coastal dunes, coastal beach, barrier beach. Very useful tools that provide a good estimate of where resource areas might be. And then finally, if there's an area that's up for question, ultimately getting boots on the ground, going over there and making an appointment either with the homeowner or talking about a good time that would work for them, and taking a look for yourself, photo documentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
No problem.
Okay, question number 3 is twofold. How would you manage a project where the resident, which also happens to serve on the Conservation Commission, has multiple violations with respect to conservation regulations? That's number one. And then what specific steps would you take to remedy the violations?
Perfect.
Would you like me to
So-
repeat it?
No, I
Okay,
can answer that.
okay.
So how to deal with a project where a commissioner might have some violations would be ultimately to bring this up with town council, bring it up to the chair of the commission, bring it up to the town administrator, the select board, point out politely to the commissioner that there are a few violations they have to deal with, perhaps call in a third-party consultant or something like that to kind of assess the situation, provide some solutions from similar type violations or projects that needed some similar work in the past. And then the steps to actually achieve this would be to give them the right permitting solutions, guide them in the right direction, perhaps establish a timeline with them of the meeting schedules and everything else that would work and actually be able to meet the deadlines to resolve the situation.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we got Marshfield has superimposed overlay zoning districts, inland wetland, coastal wetland, water resource protection district, stormwater management, Brant Rock Village. Can you please explain the process of delineation empowered by the Conservation Commissioner to determine which portions of lots fall within these respective zones?
So, the Conservation Commissioner has a lot of digital maps that are very useful in determining which resource areas properties might fall under. And typically within a wetland or perhaps near a wetland, it's best to look at the Marshfield wetland indicator map. It's very useful, and the flood map, that is. It's very useful, and we'll definitely point out if the project is within a FEMA flood zone. Also going off of that, it's very indicative via, you can look at topography, determine hydrology, establish kind of a rough estimate of where a wetland could be, get some boots on the ground, look at the fauna, the hydrology of the site, and determine if that would be in a wetland or not. And I believe the building department also has some overlays as well that they look into and can kind of determine it on their end if a property might be within our jurisdiction or not.
Great, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, no problem.
You're up.
Me, I'm up. This is a long one, so take notes.
Okay.
So an owner wishes to construct a deck on their home, walks into your office.
Okay.
They were sent there by the building department.
Okay.
The property owner says, hey, I think there might be some jurisdiction here for Concom because of some work that was done a few years prior. So that's the setup, okay?
Okay.
For the question then. Describe how would you respond to this property owner? Part one. How you'd research to give them an answer. What resources you would draw on. We'll let you catch up.
No, it's
See,
okay.
right, what resources you would draw on. There's a lot of questions in this question. And maybe referencing Marshfield's bylaws, describe what filing, to help them, is it an RDA, an NOI, or, what they would need to recommend him filing? Last part.
Okay.
It's like a 12-part question. If this proposed deck was located in a no-build zone, how would this change your recommendation?
Perfect. Thank you for that series
Really
of questions.
6 questions, it's not one, but.
Yeah. So, determine whether or not it's in jurisdiction and how to respond to the owner. That would be looking at the prior database of projects, you indicated that they previously had some work done on that property or an adjacent property. Look to see how long ago that was. If they have a wetland delineation map within the last 3 years as recommended from DEP, that would still be accurate and very useful for this project. So looking at those, talking to the owner about what their goals are for this project, how big they want the deck, what type of footings they would use. Diamond Pure footings would be less invasive than some other solutions that we see come by frequently. And how to research this project. Go into our database of prior permits, look at what work was done in that property before, perhaps abutting lots, look at the wetland lines, look at the Town of Marshfield flood map app, the DEP wetland and wetland change map, and if need be, the CRS soil web maps. Those are also useful in some cases. So using a plethora of tools, being in-house Excel spreadsheets, our scanned files, and also publicly available databases to search from and GIS sources to search from. And referencing bylaws for a deck, especially if it's in proximity to a no-build zone, that would probably be more applicable to the Chapter 505's Article 6 about setbacks. So if it's a newly constructed property, say they're proposing a setback, they're proposing a structure on that home and it's untouched, then they would have a 75-foot structure setback from the resource area, a 50-foot vegetative management setback, and then if it was built after June 20th, 2002, they would have a 50-foot setback for structures and vegetation management, and if it was built prior to 2002, that June 20th, 2002, then they would have a 25-foot setback to the resource area. However, if they wanted to go within those setbacks that were just described, then we would have to be enter the conversation about a mitigation plan. So perhaps they really want that deck to go 20 feet into the setback, but they're not using part of their other property. We could work with them to develop some sort of planting plan, get them in touch with a qualified wetland professional who could oversee that plan and ultimately do some mitigation to get them to a point where the commission would approve this project.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, no problem.
So finally, what questions do you have for us?
So,
Easy.
Thank
I got an easy one.
So what are the goals of the select board in regards for conservation within the next few years?
Sure, I think it'll be great to have someone who's maybe able to help our lay residents who may not be familiar kind of navigate and walk through the process, and just holding everyone accountable too, no matter what position they have in town or whatever their background is.
Perfect.
May I add something, Mr.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, the commission over the last few years has spent a lot of time on, the first time in 20 years, in developing new 505s. I know you're aware of that.
Yep.
So what I see the commission do is building on those new set of regulations. In some areas they've gotten a little, maybe more stringent, but in some specific areas where you actually referenced, there's a lot more clarification for our residents regarding build times and setbacks.
Yep.
It was pretty wishy-washy before. So, and reach out to our citizens. I know it is a quasi-judicial regulatory commission, but in my mind, the goal is to help the residents through the maze of regulations so we can find a way that works for the environment and the citizen.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick answer.
Hey.
I think it's our job to stay in our lane. to do what's necessary for the town as select board members and not to get involved in the Conservation Commission and other places of importance as far as quasi-judicial. However, when there is a situation at hand that can't be resolved, then I would suggest that Michael Maresco or any administrator to the town could help lessen the burden of that particular situation, and communication is always the most important thing going
Right.
forward. So that is my quick answer.
Perfect.
And you have a liaison.
Yep.
And you have a liaison, exactly. Okay?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for coming in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Good job.
Thanks, Michael. All right, you're up, Kyle. How you doing tonight?
Doing well, thanks.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate you bearing with us and waiting.
Oh, no, of course. It's very interesting.
Longer than we anticipated.
Sure,
this
yeah, I saw that was
evening.
budgeted for
But we're
like
not
10
that
minutes
far
there.
off the schedule still.
All right, Kyle, we'll just dive right into it. So you want to tell us about your professional background, and can you describe your understanding of, this position and what you know about the town of Marshfield in relation to conservation?
Sure. Start with my background. I grew up in Indiana and went to school at IU, Indiana University, studied biology. And I worked, after college, I worked for the local Soil and Water Conservation District in DeKalb County, Indiana, for 8 years. And I kind of managed a research project in conjunction with Purdue University and the National Soil Erosion Research Laboratory. We did a lot of water quality testing, more focused on agricultural runoff. In the area that I lived in, it was a very high ag community. So we had mostly corn and beans is kind of like the thing that we were researching into. But mostly we're developing best management practices to reduce pollution runoff is kind of the research project that we were working on. So then in 2020, I moved out to Massachusetts with my partner for her job. And since then, I've been trying to get involved in conservation in Massachusetts. And that's been a challenge because obviously the natural resource concerns out here are going to be different than landlocked Indiana. So in the meantime, to kind of build myself up to get in with conservation out here, I've taken the fundamentals training course offered by the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners. And then more recently, I just enrolled actually last week in a project management course offered by Google. That's a 6-month course. And that will, it's about 140 hours of instruction. And that's just going to, help me kind of get more experience on the more administrative side of things. So that's kind of how I ended up here. I'm very interested in conservation. Can you repeat the other half of that question, please?
Sure. Just what you know about conservation in relation to the town of Marshfield.
Sure. So as I've kind of said, I've been looking at specifically conservation agent and administrator positions. It's kind of in the similar wheelhouse to what I was doing back in Indiana. So in that, I've been applying for and looking for things that are kind of just geographically close to where I currently live, which is in Quincy. So I don't have like roots here in Marshfield, so I have very general understandings of conservation concerns throughout Massachusetts, not necessarily specifically here in Marshfield.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Hey, Kyle.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
So you had a chance to hear this before, so I get the long ones, Lynn gets the short ones. So
Yeah.
the average resident is looking to do a project, but they're not familiar with the town regulations. We have the bylaws.
Sure.
Then we have our 505 regulations, and we have policy and procedure after that. How would you help them navigate through that process? And then second, if you could just take this, for an example, an applicant wants to put a shed on a property that abuts wetlands.
Yeah.
What specific tools would you provide that resident in order to help them have their project be successful?
Sure. So the first thing, I guess, is, I would like to meet with this person, whether that be over the phone or in person, to kind of get a good understanding of what they're wanting to do. And hopefully, I don't have Michael's expertise on the bylaws and the regulations here at Marshfield, unfortunately. So, I think it's just, it's about helping them through the process. And, the goal is to allow them to develop what can be developed within the constraints of the bylaws, while still, conserving the things that need to be conserved generally. I initially meet with them, work through the different bylaws and regulations here, specifically to Marshfield. If you need to, we could then go and do a site visit and just check things out, make sure things are appropriately measured. Sometimes things could be a little inaccurate potentially with the information that they're bringing to us. So just very generally, that's kind of the idea there. There was a second part to your question. Would you mind repeating that?
What specific steps you identified that to make the? No, I feel you've answered that. Okay. They did sneak the dreaded shed in.
Sure.
Because they just appear.
Right.
So this is a great applicant. They're coming in for a shed.
So question number 3, again, is twofold. How would you manage a project where the resident, which also happens to serve on the Conservation Commission, has multiple violations with respect to conservation regulations? And number 2, what specific steps would you take to remedy the violations?
Sure. So for the first part there, I think that it's very important to be consistent with all of these rulings and not to play favorites. So, I think that having that discussion with that member that's on the Conservation Commission, making them aware of the things that they are in violation of, and be consistent with the rulings, that we have done historically and moving forward. So I think that's a very important bit of that. We don't want to be playing favorites. And then secondly, would you mind repeating that?
That's all right. What steps would you take to remedy?
Sure. I think that, again, it's about being consistent with everyone. So I don't know that it would be a different, necessarily different steps going through this process. So, you want to inform them of the different violations and just work through the process in the same way that you would with anyone else. And again, I understand that I don't have the details necessarily down. I've never done this kind of work in particular, but that would be something that obviously I would pick up, on the job.
Okay. Good job.
Awesome. All right, so 4th question. Marshfield has superimposed overlay zoning districts, inland wetland, coastal wetland, water resource protection district, stormwater management, and Brant Rock Village. Could you please explain the process of delineation empowered by the Conservation Commissioner to determine which portions of lots fall within these respective zones?
Sure. These are all great resources that one can use to differentiate the different maps and things. So, I think generally I've got background in working with GIS and ArcGIS and things like that. So I'm not familiar with any of those specific tools mentioned, but those are resources available to the conservation administrator or the agent. I would obviously familiarize myself with those, and then you can use those to delineate different properties and just see where things lie within relation to different wetlands and different areas of concern. So as long as these are resources that are able to be tapped into, that would be how you would just do those things, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the
Yeah, let me just get my pen
12-part question.
12 parts, yep.
So, a property owner wishes to construct a deck.
Yep.
Comes into your office, and he was sent up to your office from the building department. The property owner says, "Hey, I kind of think there might be jurisdiction here based upon a previous project or my neighbor's project." So here's the first one. Please describe how you would respond to the property owner initially.
Sure.
Okay, so first thing out of the gate. And then, how would you research and respond so you have a little more thorough response to them? What resources would you draw on? waiting for you.
I'm ready.
Okay. And then, referring and using the town's bylaws, describe what type of filing you might recommend from a form perspective. And, last but not least, if the proposed deck was in, say, a setback no-build zone, how would you change your recommendation? It's kind of, I think, to a certain degree, a typical walk-in.
Sure. So, I think to begin, how do you respond to the property owner? It's important to be the public face for the town as people come in. So it's important to, greet them friendly, in a friendly demeanor, and just to, inquire about what they want to get done, and then our job would be then to help facilitate that within the regulations and the bylaws of the town. So kind of explain all those steps, as they come in there. As far as researching the problem, again, I would need a better understanding of the bylaws and the regulations to really kind of dig into that, and that would be something that I would do, obviously, if I were in this position. That said, other resources that I have available, I mentioned that I took the MACC fundamentals course. I have all of those PowerPoints and audio files kind of saved that I could always go back and reference if I had questions about a particular, thing there. So that's one of the resources that I would draw on. Otherwise, there are a lot of, I could reference the actual regulations and bylaws here. There might be other departments that I could discuss things with if there's any overlap with different concerns there. And again, I don't have working knowledge of the specific bylaws of Marshfield, so it's hard for me to kind of answer that fourth section of your question, unfortunately.
That's okay.
And then finally, could you? I've got my notes that.
The proposed deck is in within a setback zone, no build setback or no
Sure.
touch zone. How would you change your recommendation?
Sure. So there are things that can be done even if that is within a no-build setback zone, and it may not be applicable all the time, but there can be remediation that's done elsewhere. To build or to convert other spaces into wetlands. Mm-hmm. So that may be an option. But at the end of the day, I think that it's important to be able to say no, and if it's not able to be developed because there are actual natural resource concerns, then I think that's the job of the commission to kind of enforce that.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Then Lynn has the long, lengthy one.
What questions do you have for us?
Yeah, sure.
I love that question.
So I know that the select board is an elected position, and it's 3-year terms. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm just curious as to what your background is and what how did you end up here, serving on the select board?
Do you want me to start?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. So I was elected last spring.
Okay.
I was the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals for 3 or 4 years and had been on that board for 8 years, thereabouts. So that was my beginning of being part. I did a lot of volunteering and things of that nature over the years, and I have other personal and private ventures that I've done, but that was how I ended up here, and so far so good.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Well, Kyle, I made a series of bad decisions, and that's how I ended up here.
See, there's always an honest one.
Yes. So I grew up in town. I've lived here since I was in kindergarten and just wanted to give back to the town. I was hoping that I could fill, a void that existed at the time just because people were retiring and moving on to different things. Sure. So I'm going to get back to the town, and, it takes you a long time to learn as you go through the job, too, and there's still plenty of things I have left to learn, but that's how I got here.
Okay. Well, great. Yeah.
From the financial side, I was 40 years in the medical device industry. I retired as a director of $55 million worth of business responsibility. And then from the, public side, I spent 3 years on the Conservation Commission and then 3 years approximately as its chair, so about a total of 6 years on the Conservation Commission. And then I was elected 2 years ago to this position.
Okay. I do have another question, if that's okay, if we have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what's the nature of the relationship between the select board and the departments generally that you oversee, but specifically in regards to the Conservation Commission? So like I know that we had the two gentlemen from like the sewer department that were here earlier. So like how much is communication is done in person versus correspondence? Like just what's the structure? How do you go about managing all the different departments that you are in charge of?
Do you want me to answer?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's our responsibility to, again, stay in our lane, right? So the departments themselves would answer to Michael Maresco, our administrator. The elected boards, planning, zoning, Concom, Board of Health, things like that, they all have their own boards that that are responsible for doing business as they're required to do by bylaws and things of that nature. So our interaction with conservation,
Yeah.
for example, is pretty limited. We stay ear to the ground. I'm constantly, and I'm sure the rest of the board, constantly watching Zoom and other things and understanding where the town is going in conservation measures and different projects that are coming through. So we're always aware of those things that are happening. But as far as, the operations of conservation, we kind of stay out of that job.
Okay.
We're here when we need to be here for, I guess, the bigger things. And I don't know, maybe Michael wants to expand on that as well, but go ahead. So that's my take.
Mr. Chair, could I build on that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so our role is basically finance and policy. It's not a day-to-day operations.
Sure. I was just curious about how
That's how we break up. So we're policy. Finance is a big part of our policy. Day-to-day operations by the job description, written job description is by the town administrator. Happens to be Mr. Maresco sitting right over here. We do appoint. So the administrator doesn't appoint, so we do have appointing power, so we do appoint all these commissions, and we hire. And then there is, for all the major, I don't know how many we have, 20 or whatever it is, different boards, commissions, and committees, there are liaison assignments, and we split that up. Should anybody want to come and discuss a matter privately with us, that they have an avenue to be able to do that.
Okay.
But all the day-to-day basic things would go through the administrator, and if there was anything of issue, he'd bring it to our attention.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and
Thanks, Kyle.
deliberate.
Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you guys. So you guys are welcome to wait out in the hall as we deliberate, and Michael will let you know the decision that we make. He's also happy to reach out to you if you guys need to, hit the road and get home. But we're gonna deliberate and make a decision tonight, and we'll inform you guys pretty quickly.
All right. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, the door's open, but whatever.
That's all right.
It's public hearing.
It's a
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah.
They're allowed to
Go home, watch the tape.
participate.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're lucky to have two great candidates, let alone, we're lucky to have one great candidate. We had two in this case. Both, definitely have great qualifications. In this particular case, I think Michael has more applicable and relevant experience and background, and I think that came through with his answers to the questions. So, I think, they were both two great applicants, which we were fortunate to have, but my vote would be for Michael. How about you, Jim?
I concur that Michael's the stronger of the two applicants. Although I was intrigued by Kyle's, he has a real passion. To me, it came across, he has a real passion to get into this. He really wants to. He's trying. It is a difficult, kind of very niche-y area to get into.
Yeah.
And so, maybe as Michael moves up, he might be a good backfill position for Michael.
Yep.
And Michael could help, train him.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Lynn?
I concur with both of you in your comments in regards to Michael, and I know it's hard coming into this type of career path, especially coming from Indiana, marshes and salt and wetlands and forests and all the stuff that we have here in Marshfield. And I just felt that Michael has the passion, and I mean, he doesn't have a great deal of experience here in Marshfield. However, I feel like he has the tools, right, for him to expand, and if he, like anybody, needs further help or whatever, that Mike Maresco will be able to assist in him.
He's grown a lot, too.
Yeah, and I've seen him in action, and he's well-spoken. He puts his best foot forward. He's not, you could tell, he was able to, he was the first one up, and he was able to, these questions were not really easy, and they were a little tricky in a couple spots.
Yeah, they were.
So he was, and that's what you need to be. You need to be able to react without getting reactionary and flustered and whatnot. So I'm definitely in favor of Michael Seal and his ability to do this job. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, well, with that, I'll make a motion to appoint Michael Seal to the position of Conservation Administrator. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, a vote's been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to appoint Michael Seal, position of Conservation Administrator.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, Greg, Joe, sorry to keep Rio waiting.
Leslie and Justine too.
Perfect.
After all this, we're still only 30 minutes behind, though. That's not bad.
Yeah, thank you.
That's not
Yeah.
bad. You're doing it, 8:05.
You ready, Leslie?
There she is.
Yes.
Okay.
You want me just to start?
Might as well.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm here tonight to give you a public presentation on the update to the Marshfield multi-hazard mitigation plan. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to share my screen so I can give you some PowerPoint presentation.
That sounds great, absolutely.
All right?
I think Jay will get that going for you.
It's disabled. Maybe it's coming. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Just a second.
Okay.
Thank you.
He's
Sorry,
working.
being patient.
He's working on it.
Yep.
While he's working on it, I'm gonna say that, I've got, how many slides do I have here? 20 slides or so. I've tried to make it as interesting as possible, but the material's kinda dry. So,
Is that a pun? That must be a pun.
I don't know, Joe and Greg and,
Good one.
I don't know, do we
You got
have to
that
make you guys smile or wake up? We'll try to make it interesting as we go along.
I said,
Leslie, we have a copy of your presentation.
Yeah.
If you just wanted to kind of fly through it for us while we look to get
Alright,
that
okay,
squared
sure.
away.
All right, so as I said, I'm going to be giving a presentation on the Marshfield multi-hazard mitigation plan update process. This is the second public presentation we've had on the plan. The first was in December at the Senior Center. And we've been working with the town's local hazard mitigation planning committee to update the earlier 2018 plan. FEMA requires that these plans be updated once every 5 years. So this local hazard mitigation planning committee from the town of Marshfield was made up of the town administrator, representatives from the planning department, police and fire departments, DPW, Concom, building department, ZBA, Board of Health, Veteran Services, ADA committee, library director, beach committee, and council on aging. And I just wanted to start the meeting out by saying, you know, a big thank you to that entire group for working with us on this plan update. It required a number of meetings and a lot of review work, and we really appreciate everyone's efforts. As far as the presentation outline goes, I'm gonna be going over giving an overview of the hazard mitigation planning process. So what is a hazard mitigation plan and why should Marshfield have one? We did do a public survey. I'm gonna give you, some of the results from that public survey. And then I'm gonna go through an overview of chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the plan. And then, talk about where we are on the schedule and what the next steps are. So in terms of, a big question you're asking is what exactly is a hazard mitigation plan? It's the process of reducing and eliminating loss of life or property damage resulting from natural hazards. So things like floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, not things like terrorism or pandemics. And it's a focused type of hazard plan, and ultimately, we're gonna be, through the plan, coming up, or have come up with, long-term strategies for mitigating hazards and avoiding them. And those strategies could be anything from planning and policy changes to changes in regulations, implementing actual projects on the ground, all the way through public education and outreach. So the strategies can vary widely, but the idea ideally is to help the community both prevent damage to life and property from natural hazards, and also to expedite disaster recovery after a hazard occurs. So what is a plan? These are sort of the four main steps of developing a plan. It's on this slide here. The first one is to identify and describe the hazards that can impact your community. And we're going to go through these, what we've done for that in the next few slides. The plan also requires us to identify community assets and critical facilities, and to describe the importance of these things to your town. So these are things like municipal buildings, schools, facilities that help with recovery after a disaster, facilities that need attention after disaster, elder care, hazmat facilities, things like that.
Leslie?
Yes.
Hold on, Jay is now on there, so you check to see if you can become co-host.
Host disabled participant screen sharing. Shall I keep going?
Yep.
Okay. All right, then the third part is
just tried it.
Now that we have the hazards and the critical facilities and the assets, then we combine those two data sets and we conduct a vulnerability assessment to determine, where your biggest vulnerabilities are. And then that helps us with the fourth part, which is developing mitigation actions to minimize those risks.
All right, Leslie, can we hold you for one more second? Jay,
Yeah.
Jay, are you there?
I just sent them a text and told them it's still not working.
I guess after each slide, Leslie, just check to see if you can become co-host.
Okay, will
Thank
do.
you.
Still says no. Okay, all right, so why should Marshfield have a hazard mitigation plan? Well, as I said before, it helps prevent property damage and loss of life associated with natural hazards, and it expedites recovery after the hazard. And it also helps the town prioritize spending by designing mitigation measures that make the community more resilient. And the third thing is that by having an updated and approved hazard plan, it allows the town to be eligible for a number of grant opportunities through FEMA. We've got 3 of them listed here. One is the BRIC, so Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant. So that's issued to towns pre-disaster. So to help build things, to build your resiliency. The FMA program, Flood Mitigation Assistance Program, is something that's issued to the towns, but individual property owners can actually apply to the town to be issued portions of this grant money for their own projects. So elevating or relocating, things like that. And then the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program is something from FEMA that's given out after disasters occur. When there's a state emergency, FEMA has money to help towns rebuild and become more resilient. So those are the reasons why Marshfield should have a hazard mitigation plan.
Excuse
Hey,
me.
look, I can share my screen.
She's a host now. Yep, she's a host now, okay.
Awesome.
All right, sharing.
Yay.
Let's see. All right, are we in full screen mode right now?
You were in full screen, you're on, now we see the presenter's view.
Gotcha. Okay, hang on. How about now?
Yep.
Good.
Okay. All right, let me go back to this one here. Okay, so this is the public survey results. So we did a public survey, I think we had 10 questions. We got 330 responses, which is terrific. We've done a number of these studies here, and we don't usually get this good a response. So kudos to the town for getting the word out and everyone for responding. We just showed results from a few of the questions here. So we learned that Marshfield residents really trust the Emergency Operations Center, EOC, and the police and fire department to give them information about how to prepare for natural hazard and what to do when, you know, one's coming and after it. We found out that 56% of the respondents did not know, you know, where to get a generator or to where an emergency shelter was that they could go to. So we thought that was an interesting finding. We found out that 83% of respondents don't have flood insurance, 17% do. And then we also found out that only 4% of the respondents are extremely concerned about natural hazards impacting them personally, whereas 62% are somewhat concerned and 18% are very concerned. So we use this public survey to help sort of guide some of our mitigation actions. And that's what it was useful for. Okay, so now we're going to go into chapter 3, the hazard identification section of the plan. When you update these plans, each town is required to address the hazards that are in the state's hazard mitigation plan. You're also allowed to add any hazards that you would like to. So the town decided to add dam and culvert failure. So for the reason that sometimes when we get high rainfall events or flooding, those culverts will back up and they'll cause flooding, you know, extra flooding or higher flooding on the side of the culvert, upstream side of the culvert. So the town wanted to add that as a hazard. You might think that, well, earthquakes and landslides and tsunamis don't really occur in Marshfield. You'd be right, but we had to address them because they are in the state hazard plan. For each one of these hazards, the plan itself identifies where those hazards occur within town, whether it's regionally or, you know, locally or you know, locally in certain areas. The strength and magnitude of the storms or hazards, how many times we've had these particular hazards in the past, what's the probability of the hazard occurring in the future, and what the potential impacts are. So all that's laid out in the plan. We worked with the local hazard planning committee to rank the hazards. So we've got all of them here shown on the left. And we ranked them according to 3 general criteria: likelihood of occurring, whether it's unlikely all the way up to highly likely, severity, minor up to catastrophic, and area. Do they occur in sort of isolated areas or is it town-wide? So we worked with the committee to rank them and came up with the fact that, or finding that the 4 highest ones are severe winter weather, extreme temperature, flooding, both inland and coastal, and that could be from hurricanes and nor'easters and tropical storms, and then other severe weather. So those 4 ranked the highest, and so that also helped us guide our mitigation actions. Okay, chapter 4, vulnerability assessment. So here, we identified 110 critical facilities in town by working with the committee. And we categorized them according to coastal infrastructure, energy infrastructure, public health, public safety and wastewater and infrastructure. And we looked at the vulnerability of all 110 critical facilities. We looked at the vulnerability to flooding, and we used several different databases to do this, and they're shown here on this slide. So the first one is the FEMA flood zone. So is that critical facility in a FEMA flood zone? If so, what is it? Is it an A zone or a B zone? We also use an Army Corps of Engineers database that evaluates vulnerability to category storms, hurricane category storms 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's shown here. So for example, the wastewater treatment plant is in the AE zone, and the Army Corps database shows that it would be flooded by a category 3 hurricane. And then we also looked at future flooding scenarios using a database that Woodsville Group developed for the state called MCFRM, and that shows flooding in out years 2030, 2050, and 2070, considering the effects of sea level rise, climate change, and storms. So you can see that the wastewater treatment plant has a lower probability of flooding in 2030 and 2050, but as we move up to 2070, there's a 42% chance in any given year that that wastewater treatment plant is going to be flooded in 2070. So we identified the vulnerability of all the critical facilities to these types of flooding. The other thing we did was we looked at the vulnerability of all the parcels and land within the entire town. And so what I'm showing here is one of the tables that shows vulnerability based on the FEMA V-zone data. So are the properties in a FEMA V-zone? So we have all these land use categories here on the left. These are all the parcels in town. So you've got a total of 11,714 parcels in town. Of those, 9,378 are residential single-family parcels. And of those, there's 305 in a FEMA V zone, or 3% of all residential parcels in the town of Marshfield are in a V zone. We also looked at the value of buildings within the town. So this, I think this is $2 billion, $2,462 million is the value of the buildings in the town of Marshfield. Of that, 70 million are the houses in V zones, or again, 3%. And then we also looked at the value of the total property. So this is the value of the dwelling plus the value of the land. And you can see for residential single-family parcels, 4% of the value of those parcels, house and land, are in a FEMA V zone. So we did this for all the different flooding scenarios. So FEMA A zone, FEMA B zone, the different Army Corps of Engineers hurricane categories, as well as future flooding scenarios. So this is a good indication to us. It just tells us what's most vulnerable in the town to flooding. Chapter 5, mitigation measures. This is sort of what the whole plan is geared at developing, and really one of the most important parts of the plan, in my opinion. So we worked again with the planning committee, and we came up with 8 goals for this mitigation plan. And I'm just going to read them off to you. So it's reduce and minimize the impacts to critical municipal facilities. We had 6 mitigation actions that would meet that goal. I'm going to talk about those in a second. The second goal is to improve resiliency to existing infrastructure and enhance public safety. There we had 4 goals, or 4 mitigation actions. Third is to provide access for emergency responders during and after natural hazard events. So make it possible for those emergency responders to do their job during and after the natural hazard events. There we had 3 mitigation actions. Update existing policies. In other words, do we need to update existing codes and regulations to make the town more resilient? There we had 3 mitigation actions. Ensure regional cooperation, so that's reaching out to your neighbors to the north and south and west, and ensuring that you're cooperating together to provide the most resilient communities you can. Encourage future development that minimizes risks. We had 1 mitigation action there. Identify public education opportunities. We had 3 mitigation actions there. And then finally, seek the funding to reduce vulnerability to natural hazards. And we had 4 mitigation actions there. We worked with the committee to rank these mitigation actions. We have 8 high priority actions. I'm going to show those to you in a few seconds. This next slide here actually shows the types of information that we provided or developed for each mitigation action. So I'm going to walk you through this. So this is for goal 1, that is to investigate, design, and implement projects that will reduce and minimize the risks and impacts from natural hazards to critical municipal facilities and resources. So this first action here addresses that goal, and it's to ensure that all town-owned buildings that can provide emergency support services are equipped with generators for use as cooling, heating stations during hazard events, power outages, etc. So we list the hazards that this particular mitigation action addresses. We list the CRS category, so it's an emergency service CRS category. We list the purpose of each mitigation action. We also identified who's responsible in town hall to make sure that this action is implemented. So in this case, it's the town administrator, the emergency operations center, and the planning department. We estimated a cost, whether it's low, medium, and high. Things that are high cost are more than $250,000. Things that are low cost are less than 50, and then medium cost is in between 50 and 250. We also identified potential funding sources, whether it's the town operating budget or a town meeting article or any sort of grant programs that we're aware of. And then, as I said, we work with the committee to identify priorities, low, medium, and high. So I'm going to go through now each of the goals, show you the mitigation measures, and highlight the ones that are the high priority ones. So for goal 1, that mitigation action that I just went through was actually given a high priority. So to ensure that all town-owned buildings that provide emergency support services are equipped with generators. Others, we're enhancing flood control capacity of Dyke Road. We're trying to develop adaptations for low-lying roads and bridges so that people can evacuate and there's less flooding. Reduce the vulnerability of the wastewater treatment plant. Implement stormwater BMPs for vulnerable roadways. So those were some of the 6 alternatives for goal 1. Goal 2 is to develop and implement strategies for hazard-prone areas of town that improve resiliency to existing infrastructure and enhance public safety. So here, the 2 high priority mitigation actions were prepare a substantial damage management plan and develop resources for vulnerable coastal business districts. Other lower priority items were, for example, creating a master stormwater management plan, eliminating dune paths through the dunes that sort of reduce the ability of those dunes to protect areas behind them, and then providing education for building retrofits and access building sources, funding sources. Goal 3 is to reduce the loss of life, property, infrastructure, and environmental and cultural resources from natural disasters by maintaining accessibility for emergency responders. And so the high priority item here was to treat roads quickly and effectively to maintain safe access. We also came up with developing a flood warning and response plan and regular tree trimming on municipal properties. Goal 4 is to review and update existing policies and programs. Here we came up with 2 high priority actions. One is to evaluate all zoning, bylaws, and codes as necessary to increase the resiliency to natural hazards, and also to verify the repetitive loss properties and inform existing rep loss property owners annually about financial assistance options they could take to reduce risk and get them out of the rep loss categorization. Goal 5 is to engage with surrounding communities to ensure regional cooperation. We didn't have any high priority items there, but we talked about it and included ideas about collaborating with Situate and Duxbury on salt marsh evaluation, restoration of stormwater systems, and also developing evacuation routes to improve transportation needs during or after a natural hazard. Basically, transportation routes that would sort of go through adjoining towns. Goal 6 is to encourage future development that minimizes risks to natural hazards, such as coastal and riverine flooding. Here again, we didn't have any high priority items, but we talked about and included developing a framework that addresses buyouts and incentives for relocation from low-lying neighborhoods. 7 is to identify public education opportunities. And here we identified maintaining programming that promotes flood insurance as a high priority item. Also developing strategies and materials to increase community awareness, and working with local marinas and yacht clubs to prepare storm preparedness plans for those facilities. And then finally, 8 is to identify and seek funding necessary to study, design, and construct projects that will reduce the town's vulnerability. And here we ranked as high priority integrating municipal mitigation and adaptation projects into the town's operating capital budgets. And as lower priority items, developing and prioritizing funding for infrastructure improvement projects, conserving the town's open space and looking for opportunities to expand that, and investigating the repair and removal of damaged dams, culverts, tide gates, and flood control and protection structures. As far as next, or where we are in the schedule, we were contracted to start this work in August of 2022. Right now, we're up here on this public presentation, February 27th, 2023. We have a draft plan that we have prepared, and the local planning committee is reviewing that as we speak. We expect to get comments from them later this week or early next week, and we'll have time to incorporate their comments so that we can release a draft plan for public comment on March 3rd. So that will be on the town's website starting on March 3rd. It'll be there through the 17th. We'll accept public comment. We'll then incorporate those comments into the plan and be able to submit it to MEMA and FEMA for approval later on in March. It'll take them, maybe usually takes them about a month to 6 weeks to review it. They usually come back with some questions and requests for revisions, hopefully not too many. We can turn that around relatively quickly, usually, and hope to get approval, I would say, later in the spring for this plan. So that you'll be ready to have that plan approved by the Board of Selectmen once it's approved by FEMA, and you'll have another plan ready to go for 5 years.
Awesome.
So that takes care of the presentation. I can stop sharing my screen and answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Leslie. It's definitely a very insightful presentation. We appreciate all the hard work that you're doing too, and this is definitely something that every relevant town department should, go through very carefully so they know what we should be prioritizing for our town residents as well. Greg or Joe, did you have anything that you would like to add?
Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to mention that there is only 2 prerequisites to be involved in CRS. Having a hazard mitigation plan is one of those 2. So this is critical for us to stay in CRS. Not only that, but the last time we did this plan in 2018, we were nationally recognized by FEMA as best practice for integrating CRS activities into our hazard mitigation plan. We've done that once again. So I expect that this plan will continue to give us the CRS credits that we're looking for to hopefully not have to rely on other activity areas and build our hazard mitigation plan to be a place where we get a lot of CRS credits. And I don't know if, Leslie, I've updated you on this, but the good news on my end is I was able to work a little Joe Flood magic, and ISO will have a draft review done within 2 weeks of our plan.
That's terrific, Joe.
Yeah.
And CRS is flood insurance and the discount?
Yeah, so the CRS program, the Community Rating System, thank you, Greg, helps us reduce individual homeowners and business owners' flood insurance policies through the federal government. And I just want to call out one thing that Leslie put in her slides I thought was interesting is 17% of respondents had flood insurance, which is a number that we're constantly looking to improve actually as part of our CRS projects. We talked at the annual review of the PPI here a few weeks ago that we were looking to do a townwide survey on who had private versus NFIP insurance, and that we actually put that question as a follow-up. It's not the survey we want to do, but it was indicative that I think most respondents had private flood insurance, which means that our numbers on our annual review are actually not reflective of how many policies we have in town, which is a good thing because that means there's more flood insurance than we think.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Anything else you'd like to add, Greg?
No.
No? Any questions or comments, Jim?
No, I thought it was a great presentation, and it is necessary for a coastal community like ourselves.
Awesome. Any questions or comments, Lynn?
Leslie, nice to see you again. I was at the Council on Aging for your last presentation, so. Yep, so I appreciate you doing this again for this board, and Chapter 5 is the key, right?
Yes.
It
Yes,
is
it
the
is.
key. So we'll all pay close attention to that, and 2070, it's a long way away, but I think that we need to be prepared for it. So I appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Leslie.
Joe, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Greg, of course.
Sure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone. All right, we're going to jump to our third action item, which is discussion and vote on the request for ARPA funding for the COVID vaccine clinic and testing reimbursement. Michael, do you want to give us the background on that?
Yes, so in order to close out the books on June 30th, 2022, we need to pay the bills. As folks know, when we run the clinic and stuff, we get reimbursed $40 per shot. Like anything else, it takes the state a while to get the money out to us, so we need to close the books. And as folks know, we use CARES Act money to pay, and when there was CARES Act money available to run the clinic, we're now using ARPA funds, which is an allowable source to run clinics, pay for salary of fire, police, and nurses that run clinics. So this will close out the books. This is $194,000. We may still get more reimbursements to that. They're behind. And that will clear us. And then from July 1 through February 24th or 5th, that Saturday that we closed. So we'll have two options then. We can either use ARPA money or we can use federal FEMA money. So more than likely we'd use FEMA money, because I don't know how long it will take. I mean, we're still waiting to get reimbursed for 15, 16, 17, 18 on FEMA reimbursements for storms, so it takes a while, but it's the best option when we
Takes
get to
a
that
while.
point.
Going on 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions or comments, Jim?
Pick it up, FEMA.
Yeah. Hurry up.
That's a comment. No.
Any questions or comments, Lynn?
No, thank you.
All right, great. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve from the town's ARPA funding the amount of $194,746 to cover the costs in the COVID vaccine / testing clinic to close out the balance as of June 30th, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, a motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to approve the request for ARPA funding to close out the COVID vaccine testing.
All right, next up is a request to waive the electrical permit fees for generators at 23 Clay Pit Road. Basically, we don't charge ourselves to do permitting fees, so it's pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments, Jim?
No questions, no comments.
Questions or comments, Lynn?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the request by the building department on behalf of Michael Pizek, electrician, to waive the electric permit fees for the generators on 23 Clay Pit Road, the transfer station. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to approve the waiving of the fee for the transfer station.
All right, number 5, similar. It's plumbing and gas permit fees for a hot water heater at South River Street. Any questions or comments, Jim?
No.
Any questions or comments, Lynn?
No.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the request by the building department on behalf of Coastline Plumbing and Heating to waive all plumbing and gas permit fees for the South River School. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to waive the fees for the South River School.
All right, Jim, any questions or comments on the minutes from our February 13th meeting?
I reviewed them, no.
Any
They
questions?
were updated and I'm comfortable with them.
Great. Any questions or comments, Lynn?
No, I did not.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the the minutes from the meeting on February 13th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to accept the minutes from February 13, 2023.
All right, then last up, we have a board discussion about requesting 3 additional all-alcohol pouring licenses from the Commonwealth, as well as 3 all-alcohol package store licenses. Basically, we're at our cap right now. If a restaurant were to open, they'd have no way to serve or pour alcohol, and we have a Mexican restaurant right now making margaritas with a malt-based liquor, which should be a crime. So.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion?
What's the?
I'd like to make a motion that we table this to a subsequent meeting, this discussion. I've tried to look into this. I know liquor licenses are allocated in the state based upon population. But there are other instances where we can have some more flexibility on that. I would like to have a greater understanding of the legality of how we approach this. So I'd like to make a motion to table it so I can feel a little more comfortable in being able to make a good decision.
Sure, understood. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Motion
Thank you,
made
Mr.
and
Chairman.
duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Nay.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
And Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Okay, so 2-1 vote to table this.
All right. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Motion's been made to adjourn. Roll call is in order. Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kilcoyne?
Aye.
Ms. Fiddler?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to adjourn.